So, renowned American televangelist Jimmy Swaggart has passed away at the age of 90, marking an end of an era in global Christian broadcasting. Swaggart, known for his fiery sermons, gospel music, and decades-long television ministry, was a prominent figure in evangelical circles, reaching millions of viewers around the world. His death has prompted tributes from religious leaders and followers alike, reflecting on his complex legacy in faith and media. Let's now get more reaction, and joining me now is UNISA's college, from UNISA's College of Human Sciences, is Professor Itumeleng Daniel Mothoagae. A very good morning to you, Professor Mothoagae. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning. How do we explain to people who do not know who Jimmy Swaggart is that this is the man who was quite influential also around Christian broadcasting?
Yes, good morning to you and good morning to your viewers. Yeah, I think one of the things is that if we have to summarize a little bit about Jimmy Swaggart, we have to say that he's one of the few figures that embody religious, in modern religious history, that embody triumph and tragedy. And he is a preacher who was able to reach millions of people. He was able to move hearts, and at the same time, he is a man whose moral collapse, we can say, defined the moment of American Christianity. So if we have to really say that about Jimmy Swaggart, he was a very complex man in terms of his life. He had a revivalist fire. He was a media savvy and, of course, surrounded by scandals, but also a cautionary tale about power, pride, and redemption.
Power, pride, and redemption. Let's speak about that power and the ability of that power to create essentially what became a business with $142 million, and this is back in 1986 already.
Look, he pioneered televangelism, and he did it around the 1980s, of course, because he aired around over 3,000 plus on TV stations and 500 plus on radio stations worldwide. And, so basically standing against secular entertainment in production value. And also, he was also innovative in terms of fundraising. One of the things that he would say is that God told me to ask you for $1,000 US. So he set a template later adopted and criticized in prosperity gospel cycles. So that is Jimmy Swaggart, and at the same time also how he worked around, how he managed to influence his people or his followers, because he had a gospel music legacy. Yeah. He had a soulful piano playing renditions of hymns like "How Great Thou Art." He preached Pentecostalism fervor with mainstream appeal, and also he had a cultural impact where he collaborated with secular artists like your Little Richard, and of course hinted at a crossover potential before the scandal derailed it. So that is, in a way, if we have to say, when we look at him, within the space of televangelism, what did he do? And if he was able to stand up against secular mainstream and be able to get people to view him more than they would view secular mainstream, then you would say that the man was indeed savvy.
Yeah, and what is it then about the scandals that broke out, one of them being in 1988 with sex workers, that after that scandal he lost, of course, a following, but also considering that this is somebody who preaches around redemption and revivalist, Why is it that he was not able to, I don't know, somewhat survive those particular scandals?
I think, look, with Jimmy Swaggart, one of the things about him was that he said something very, very, very touching regarding that scandal. He said, "I have sinned against you, my Lord," and that became a cultural meme, if one can call it that way. But also he had also one of the things was his denominational fallout with the Assemblies of God, which rocked him actually, because it was a rare rebuke for a star preacher, and it singled the shift in tolerance for misconduct. So that's what his I would say, cost his in terms of his scandal, that those were the layers that caused some of these tensions that he never may be able to recover. However, one of the things also,
Professor Mothoagae, okay, we seem to have lost the professor there. Just quickly speaking to us about the life and legacy of Jimmy Swaggart, who died on the 1st of July at the age of 90. And one of those controversies, of course, includes what happened back in 1988 with a sex scandal, which involved a sex worker as well, and how he was able to deal with that particular scandal. And the Prof was still speaking about that particular moment and how that moment had an impact on Swaggart, and also what he said during that sermon: "I have sinned against you. I beg you to forgive me," which of course also ignited the resignation from the Assemblies of God later that year, shortly after the church said it was defrocking him from rejecting punishment it had ordered for moral failure. Okay, we seem to be struggling there to get Professor. With Professor Itumeleng Daniel Mothoagae from UNISA's College of Human Sciences, as we look at the legacy of Jimmy Swaggart, who died at the age of 90. Prof, just quickly concluding on the thought that you had a bit earlier on, looking at how Jimmy was struggle at least to survive that scandal from 1988. But also, as you conclude that thought, speak to us about the legacy then that he leaves behind, because certainly with the work that he's done as a televangelist, we see remnants of that with what we are currently experiencing globally, including here in South Africa.
I think one of the legacies that we have to appreciate out of that scandal of Jimmy Swaggart is media skepticism, when networks began investigating, reporting televangelist finances and checking on how they were doing their fundraising stunts. That's one. The donor distrust that also was part of that, that came out of that scandal, and also the institution called Evangelical Council for Financial Accountability, that was aimed at reforming ministry transparency in the US, and of course, and where painted televangelists as hypocrites and also hardening the cultural divide. But the lessons that I think we need to learn is personality cult, because his ministry, as resilient as he was, and with his charisma, one of the things about it is that he had no structure as in his own church, and therefore it left him vulnerable. And in contrast, if you look at Billy Graham in planning, but also the moral blind spots, because Swaggart condemnation, because he condemned the guy called Marvin Gorman, but then he later on himself had to fall on the same thing, and the issue around hypocritical characters of televangelists, but also accountability versus grace. At what point can we say that a minister of these churches, televangelist churches, they've got to be accountable? And at what point can we say that where one is abusing power in the sense to say that God has said, you must give me this? But and also media ministry, I think, is one of the things that also does, because Swaggart TV empire magnified both his preaching and also his sins.
Yeah.
And I think for today, mega churches face similar risks in social media.
Whoa, I love that. Magnified his preaching and his sins. Thank you so much for making time for us.